You won't believe what happened when a neighbor took it upon herself to play inspector. One sunny morning, I was sipping my coffee on the porch, enjoying the peaceful hum of my farm, when I noticed Karen from the HOA marching up my driveway like she owned the place. And trust me, this wasn't just any casual hello. She had a clipboard, a glare, and an attitude that screamed, "I'm about to ruin your day." Karen had apparently made a note about my gutters. According to her, they were non-compliant, full of leaves and debris. She told me in no uncertain terms that the city would be inspecting my property soon, and if I didn't clean my gutters, I would face HOA consequences. I tried to explain that I had a busy schedule and that the gutters weren't as bad as she imagined. But Karen didn't want to listen. No, she wanted results, and she wanted them yesterday. At first I thought it was just typical HOA overreach, but then she dropped the bomb. She had already called the city. "They're coming this week," she said with a smug smile. I could feel my blood pressure spike. The audacity! Who gets to call city inspectors just because they personally don't like the look of your gutters? And why did they seem to obey her every command without question? I had to find out. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I decided to observe. I spent the next few days subtly watching my driveway, waiting for city vehicles to roll up. Sure enough, like clockwork, inspectors arrived. They weren't vague or casual. They were thorough. Clipboards out, cameras snapping, notes being scribbled. Every leaf in my gutters was documented, every minor obstruction noted. It felt like an invasion, a carefully staged spectacle designed to make me sweat. And Karen? She was smiling from her porch across the street, clearly enjoying the show. The strange part was how quickly the inspectors seemed to act on her. Complaints. No warning. No prior notice. Just straight to work. I started to wonder, had the HOA overstepped their authority? Were city inspectors legally obligated to follow her demands? And most importantly, what did this mean for me, my home, and my sanity? As I stood there, stewing in frustration, another thought hit me. This wasn't just about gutters. This was about control, about ego, about Karen proving she could bend the system to her will. And I wasn't going to let her. I realized I needed a plan, not just to deal with the gutters, but to reclaim a sense of peace and fairness on my property. But before I could act, something else happened that escalated the situation. Beyond anything I could have imagined. The morning the inspectors arrived, I realized this was no ordinary HOA squabble. I had been expecting a quick visit, a few notes on a clipboard, and then life returning to normal. But what unfolded felt like a full-blown operation. Multiple vehicles pulled up, flashing official logos, and several inspectors stepped out, each carrying clipboards, cameras, and measuring tools. It was as if Karen had orchestrated a full-scale raid on my property. I stepped outside to greet them, trying to stay calm. "Good morning," I said, hoping to diffuse tension. But the lead inspector barely glanced at me, as if my presence didn't matter. Instead, they immediately focused on the gutters, taking measurements, snapping photos, and jotting down observations. I watched in disbelief. I had cleaned parts of the gutters a few weeks back. But the inspectors treated even a tiny leaf as a major violation. Karen, of course, was standing on the sidewalk across the street, arms crossed, as if she were directing the entire operation. At first I tried reasoning. "Look, they're not blocked. They drain fine," I said. The inspectors nodded politely but continued their work. Each time I spoke, Karen would shoot me a glare that made it clear she expected full compliance. It was surreal, like I was a character in a movie, trapped between a controlling neighbor and an unyielding bureaucracy. I felt powerless watching the spectacle unfold. Then it got even stranger. One inspector asked if I had proof of recent gutter maintenance. I showed them photos from my phone, evidence that I had been keeping up with regular cleaning. They nodded, made notes, but still seemed compelled to document every minor imperfection. It became painfully clear. The city wasn't investigating independently. They were validating Karen's claim, not questioning it. Every step I took, she seemed to be one step ahead. A puppet master pulling invisible strings. While they worked, I realized this could escalate. If I didn't take action, Karen could continue to manipulate city inspections to assert control over my property indefinitely. That's when an idea hit me. I had resources, tools, and even animals on my farm that she didn't expect. If she was going to treat my life like a checklist for her ego, maybe it was time to flip the script. Before I could act, a small commotion started near the pasture. Keran's daughter had wandered into my yard, snapping selfies with my cows as if they were props for her social media. That's when I knew the gloves were off. Keran had crossed a line. My patience was gone, and I realized this wasn't just about gutters anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and taking control of my own property in the face of an overbearing neighbor. And that's when the photobomb plan started to take shape. I could feel my blood boiling as I watched Keran's daughter crouch down, phone in hand, trying to get the perfect selfie with my cows. Honestly, I've never minded visitors. My animals are friendly. But this was different. She wasn't asking permission. She was invading my space, using my property as her personal backdrop, all while her mother orchestrated city inspections like some kind of neighborhood overlord. Enough was enough. I retreated to the barn, my mind racing. That's when I spotted the manure loader, parked and ready for daily chores. A mischievous, almost cinematic idea formed. If she wanted to treat my farm like a prop for her social media, why not give her a little taste of farm life with a twist? I could photobomb her selfies without even confronting her directly. It would be hilarious, memorable, and perhaps a gentle lesson about boundaries. I grabbed the loader and started it up, careful to keep my distance. The engine roared, and I slowly maneuvered it toward the pasture. I wasn't reckless. Safety was a priority. But I could already imagine the perfect shot. Her wide-eyed reaction as I drove past her selfies with the cows in the background, a hint of reality from real farm life. As I approached, I could see her oblivious to the impending chaos. She was completely absorbed in angles, lighting, and filters, unaware that I was about to make her photos unforgettable. Timing was everything. With a steady hand, I guided the loader into position just behind her, making sure the cows stayed calm. My heart pounded, adrenaline mixing with amusement. This was going to be perfect. Then I hesitated for a split second, remembering Keran's smug glare from earlier, and the city inspectors still parked near my driveway. I needed this to be funny, not dangerous. I adjusted the loader carefully, keeping it controlled, and nudged the tractor so that the manure pile appeared in the frame. Subtle, yet impossible to miss. The cows, ever the stars of the show, seemed to sense the drama. One of them wandered toward her, photobombing naturally, adding the finishing touch. Her reaction was priceless. She gasped, squealed, and jumped back, trying to shield her phone from the inevitable mess. Though, thankfully, I was careful enough that nothing actually hit her. I couldn't stop laughing. The scene felt like something out of a movie. Keran's daughter frozen mid-selfie, the cows perfectly positioned, and the loader looming in the background. It was chaos, comedy, and justice all in one frame. At that moment, I realized I had reclaimed control, not just over my farm, but over the situation as a whole. Keran and her daughter had underestimated me, and it had backfired spectacularly. This wasn't just a prank. It was a statement. My property, my rules, my cows. But just when I thought the battle was over, Keran herself decided to escalate things, and it got even crazier. Just when I thought I'd reclaimed control, I noticed Keran storming toward the pasture, her face the perfect storm of fury and disbelief. Apparently, she had witnessed her daughter's photobomb fiasco from her porch and was ready to turn the situation into an official complaint again. But this time, I wasn't about to let her dictate the narrative. I stood tall, hands on hips, watching as she approached. City inspectors still lingering near the driveway, clipboards in hand. "Do you realize what your child just did?" Keran barked, her voice high and sharp, echoing across the yard. "This is unacceptable. You could be fined." I fought to suppress laughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her daughter had invaded my property, and now Keran was outraged over a harmless farm joke that was, frankly, an act of self-defense. I calmly explained the situation. Her daughter had entered my property uninvited, taking selfies with my cows. The loader and the photobomb were a response, a creative way to assert boundaries, while keeping everyone safe. I even mentioned the city inspectors. pointing out that the legal responsibility to maintain my property didn't include policing social media, behavior, or complying with overzealous HOA demands. The inspectors exchanged glances, and I could sense they were quietly questioning Keran's authority over their official procedures. Keran's face flushed crimson, and she sputtered, trying to find a comeback, but there was none. Her power play had failed spectacularly. I had not only defended my property, but also exposed the absurdity of her control tactics. The city inspectors, surprisingly diplomatic, closed their notebooks and left, making it clear they were there for legitimate inspections, not HOA drama. Keran's smug satisfaction evaporated in an instant. I stepped closer, smiling calmly. "Next time," I said, "please ask before stepping onto someone else's property or before calling in the city for personal grievances." Her jaw tightened, but there was nothing she could do. My point had been made, and the cows, ever the perfect allies, seemed to nod in agreement. As Keran retreated, fuming and muttering under her breath, I realized something important. Sometimes, standing up to petty control requires creativity, courage, and a little humor. The photobomb wasn't just about revenge. It was about sending a message. I had maintained my boundaries, asserted my rights, and even made sure my farm's reputation remained intact. Most importantly, I had reminded everyone that property, privacy, and respect are non-negotiable. That day, I learned a powerful lesson. You can't control everything that happens around you, but you can control your response. And sometimes, the best response involves cows, cameras, and a well-timed manure loader. And as for Keran and her daughter, let's just say they'll think twice before turning my farm into a personal stage again. Enjoying this wild HOA showdown? Hit that subscribe button to catch more hilarious real-life farm stories. Give this video a like if you laughed at the photobomb, and drop a comment below. What would you have done if Keran tried to boss you around like that?